My daughter Ella bullied a girl in a wheelchair so badly that she attempted suicide, so I cut off her internet and made her write 500-word empathy essays every day to get the Wi-Fi password until her own friends turned on her and she spent senior year eating lunch in bathroom stalls, living the same hell she'd put Jamie through before finally understanding what she'd done. My daughter Ella has been a bully for what feels like forever. If a kid in her class had a stutter, she'd loudly mock it. If her friend had a head injury, she'd flick her temple. During her classmate's birthday, she literally poured a glass of cola onto the birthday girl's dress. But then last year, this girl in a wheelchair named Jamie joined her class, and Ella turned into a monster like I'd never seen. 2 weeks in, she accidentally poured water onto Jamie's electric wheelchair, causing the brakes to malfunction. After that, it only got worse. Ella and her friends would coordinate accidents where they would bump into her chair and film her struggling to recover. They made a fake dating profile using non-consensually taken photos with descriptions like, "looking for someone who doesn't mind changing my diaper." Ella even created memes comparing her to vegetables and posted them to her year's privated IG gossip account. The worst was when Ella found her physical therapy videos that her mom had posted privately and reposted them with jokes about Jamie trying to be human. It was horrible, and I had no idea that any of this was happening until I got the call that changed everything. I was at work when the school rang my phone. I was told Jamie had attempted suicide. She was in the ICU fighting for her life. My heart broke for her. I asked if she was okay and why the principal was letting me know personally when it was the end of the school year, and that's when he dropped the bomb. They'd found hundreds of messages from multiple accounts, all linked to Ella's friend group. The worst one was sent that morning. "Even your wheelchair wants to get away from you. Do everyone a favor and KYS." I dropped my lunch onto the floor in shock, then excused myself and headed straight home. Didn't even tell my boss. When I got home, I found Ella on her bed scrolling through TikTok without a care in the world. I told her I knew about Jamie, but she barely looked up from her phone. I told her what Jamie had attempted because of her actions. This time, she looked up, but instead of showing an ounce of remorse, she told me with this dead stare, "It's not my fault she couldn't take a joke," then looked back down at her phone. I remember my world freezing. This was the monster I had raised. I remember forcefully grabbing her phone off her and locking myself in the bathroom. Ella started screaming and pounding the door, yelling at me to give the phone back and that she didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't listen. I combed her phone and found messages that made me physically sick. Even worse, I saw my 15-year-old self in those messages. I was the kid who ate lunch in bathroom stalls. I was the kid who tried to end it all junior year because the torment never stopped. Ella knew this, and she still went ahead and did it. That was the moment something cold and calculating replaced my parental instinct. My daughter had become the monster I'd spent decades trying to forget, and I was going to show her exactly what it felt like to be the victim. I came out of the bathroom to where she was almost crying with rage, but instead of giving her the phone back, I took every device, her iPad, her computer, everything. She screamed and cried and even tried to hit me, but I refused to let up. I gathered everything and went into the living room where I locked myself in, leaving her to scream at me from the outside. I canceled her mobile data immediately, then changed the Wi-Fi password. You see, Ella was chronically online, so no access to the internet was basically a death sentence. So when I saw Ella again, she tried to lunge at me, but I restrained her and told her the new rule. She wanted internet? She'd write a 500-word handwritten essay, a real apology letter to Jamie showing actual understanding of what she'd done, research about disabilities, empathy. Every single day I'd change the Wi-Fi password, and to get it, she'd need to write a new essay for that day's password. "You're insane," she screamed. "I need Wi-Fi for homework." "Then you better start writing," I said. She laughed and stormed off. She thought I'd cave, but by dinner when I hadn't, she started panicking. She came down with one sarcastic line, "Sorry you're so sensitive." She went to bed without internet. Day 2, she tried to hack the router. Day 3, she attempted to break into my room. The whole of week 1 was pure rage, screaming, throwing things. I didn't do anything wrong. She's just weak. Week 2, she called her mom claiming abuse, but I had every legal right to control my home internet. Neither her mom nor law enforcement, who she actually called, could do anything. By week 3, Ella went silent. Without internet, she was forced to reflect on what she had done, and by day 30, she was cracking because her entire social life had vanished. No Instagram, no TikTok, no group chats. She was living what she'd put Jamie through, complete isolation. Day 45 brought the first real essay. She'd researched what it meant to be disabled. It was honestly an amazing essay, and I kept promise on my word. I gave her the password. The next morning, she brought down another essay and got the password again. I remember day 75, she begged to visit Jamie in the hospital. I drove her there and waited in the lobby. I don't know what I expected, but she came back an hour later with red eyes and wouldn't speak, just stared out the window the whole ride home. Her first day back in school after summer was the day that truly changed everything. She was almost excited. She had prepared this whole speech to Jamie about how sorry she was and how she wanted to be her friend. I dropped her off and told her I'd see her later, but then she came home that afternoon white as a sheet. And when I asked her what was wrong, she wouldn't tell me. All I heard was that Jamie was back too, and she was ready to make my daughter's life hell. I needed to understand what was happening. The next few days were tense. Elia barely spoke at meals, picking at her food while staring at nothing. She'd go go straight to her room after school, emerging only for dinner and her daily essay. The essays themselves had changed. They weren't just about Jamie anymore. She wrote about isolation, about losing friends, about understanding what it felt like to be on the outside. On the fourth day after school started, I found her crying in her room. Not the angry tears from before, but something deeper. She showed me her phone, screenshots of group chats where her former friends were planning parties without her, messages calling her weird for apologizing to Jamie, photos from hangouts she wasn't invited to. "They're doing to me what we did to her," she whispered. I sat on her bed, watching my daughter finally understand the weight of her actions. She pulled up more messages. Her best friend had started a rumor that Ella had gone crazy over the summer. Another girl posted old photos of them with Ella's face scribbled out. The same tactics she'd used on Jamie were now aimed at her. "Jamie didn't do anything," Ella continued. "She just exists, and they're all turning on me because I tried to apologize." Over the next weeks, the situation escalated. Ella's locker was vandalized with permanent marker. Someone created a fake social media account using her photos, posting embarrassing content. During lunch, she sat alone while her former friends loudly discussed plans in her earshot. The very girl who had poured cola on someone's dress now found mysterious stains on her own clothes after gym class. I watched my daughter transform. She started helping younger students who were eating alone. She joined the library volunteer program, shelving books during lunch to avoid the cafeteria. Her essays evolved into genuine research about empathy, bullying psychology, and the long-term effects of social isolation. One evening, she came home with a bruise on her arm. Someone had accidentally shoved her into a locker, the same excuse she'd used when bumping Jamie's wheelchair. She didn't complain, just went to her room and wrote that day's essay about understanding physical vulnerability. The breaking point came during the school's fall festival. Ella had volunteered to help set up, trying to find new ways to belong. I dropped her off early that Saturday morning, watching her carry boxes of decorations inside. When I picked her up that afternoon, she was soaked and shivering. Her former friends had accidentally spilled multiple drinks on her throughout the day, the same coordinated accidents she'd orchestrated against Jamie. That night, she wrote the longest essay yet, 5 pages about accountability, about how apologizing doesn't erase harm, about living with the consequences of cruelty. She talked about seeing Jamie at school, how Jamie didn't seek revenge, but simply lived her life while Ella's world crumbled from the natural consequences of her own actions. "Jamie is stronger than I ever was," she wrote. "She survived what we did and came back. I'm falling apart after just 2 months." The isolation deepened. Group projects became nightmares as classmates refused to work with her. Teachers, aware of her history, watched her with suspicion. Even new students were warned away from her. She spent most lunches in empty classrooms, doing homework or reading. I found myself torn between protecting my daughter and letting her fully experience what she'd inflicted on others. When she came home crying after someone had spread rumors about her hygiene, mirroring the diaper jokes she'd made about Jamie, I had to leave the room to compose myself. This was exactly what she'd done, but seeing her live through it was harder than I'd expected. One day, she encountered Jamie in the hallway. Elia froze, clutching her books. Jamie simply moved past in her wheelchair, not acknowledging her existence. That non-interaction devastated Ella more than any confrontation could have. She realized Jamie had moved on while she was trapped in the consequences of her own cruelty. I wonder what really made Ella think she could treat Jamie that way without any pushback from her own dad. This parent watching their kid become everything they hated about their own childhood, that's got to mess with your head in ways they're not even showing us yet. Her grades started suffering, not from lack of internet, but from the emotional toll. She'd sit at her desk for hours, staring at assignments while tears rolled down her cheeks. The confident, cruel girl from summer was gone, replaced by someone who flinched at laughter in the hallways, assuming it was directed at her. I maintained the internet restrictions, but they'd become almost secondary. Ella wrote her daily essays without complaint now, treating them as a form of therapy. She researched restorative justice, wrote about the cycle of bullying, analyzed her own behavior with brutal honesty. The worst day came when someone posted a video compilation of her past bullying incidents, all her cruelest moments, edited together with mocking music. The post went viral in the school community. Parents commented about keeping their kids away from her. Teachers looked at her with disgust. She came home that day and locked herself in her room, refusing dinner. I found her later, sitting on her bedroom floor surrounded by her essays, hundreds of pages documenting her journey from denial to understanding. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. "I destroyed her life for fun," she said, "and now I'm living in the ruins of my own." The next morning, she asked to be homeschooled. I refused. Running away wouldn't teach her anything. She needed to face what she'd created, just as Jamie had been forced to face what was done to her. The difference was, Jamie had been innocent. Ella was experiencing justice. As winter approached, Ella had become a ghost in her own life. She moved through school silently, efficiently, invisibly. Her former friends had moved on to new dynamics, occasionally tossing cruel comments her way, but mostly ignoring her existence. She ate lunch in the special education classroom, helping teachers organize materials, not for image rehabilitation, but because it was the only place where people didn't actively hate her. One afternoon, I saw her watching Jamie from across the park parking lot. Jamie was laughing with friends, surrounded by people who'd rallied around her after the sewer slide attempt. The contrast was stark. Jamie had survived and found support. Ella had created her own isolation and found only consequences. That night's essay was different. Instead of analysis or apology, she wrote about acceptance, about understanding that some things can't be fixed, that some harm can't be undone. She wrote about living with permanent consequences, about becoming someone better not for forgiveness, but because it was right. I don't deserve Jamie's forgiveness, she wrote. I don't deserve my old life back. I deserve exactly what I'm experiencing. The question is what I do with this knowledge. As I read those words, I realized my daughter had finally learned what I'd spent months trying to teach her. Not through my interventions, but through living the reality she'd created for others. The internet restrictions had started her journey, but her classmates' rejection had completed it. She understood now that cruelty creates its own prison, and she'd locked herself in with her own actions. I watched Ella continue her daily routine of essays and isolation, but something shifted in the house. She started leaving notes for me around the house, not asking for anything, just observations about her day. One morning, I found a sticky note on the coffee maker, describing how she'd helped a freshman find their classroom. Another on the bathroom mirror detailed how she'd picked up someone's scattered papers in the hallway without being asked. Her essays grew more sophisticated. She researched the psychology of group dynamics, wrote about mob mentality, analyzed how she'd weaponized social hierarchies. Each piece showed deeper understanding than the last. I kept every single one in a folder that grew thicker by the day. The school called me in for a meeting. The guidance counselor expressed concern about Ella's social isolation. I explained the situation, showed them some of her essays. They nodded but suggested maybe it was time to ease up. I refused. Natural consequences were the only teacher that seemed to work with my daughter. Ella's former best friend, Victoria, started dating someone new. The boy happened to be someone Ella had once mocked for his acne. I watched my daughter process this information when she overheard it in the hallway. She came home and wrote an essay about karma that made me wonder if she truly understood or was just intellectualizing her pain. Parent-teacher conferences arrived. I attended alone while Ella stayed home writing that day's essay. Multiple teachers commented on her transformation. The girl who once disrupted classes with cruel jokes now sat silently, completed all assignments, helped without being asked. But they also noted her complete social isolation. One teacher mentioned seeing her eat lunch in the bathroom stall, the same place I'd hidden decades ago. I found Ella reorganizing her room one evening, taking down posters of influencers she used to idolize. She created a study space where her vanity used to be. When I asked about it, she simply shrugged and returned to her essay about the responsibility of influence. Her physical appearance changed too. The carefully styled hair became a simple ponytail. The trendy clothes gave way to plain hoodies. She moved through the world, trying to take up as little space as possible, the opposite of the girl who once commanded attention through cruelty. One morning, Ella showed me her phone. Someone had created an Instagram account called Ella's Greatest Hits, featuring screenshots of her past cruel messages. The follower count climbed daily. Parents shared it as a warning. Teachers referenced it in anti-bullying presentations. My daughter had become a cautionary tale. She handled it by writing essays about public shame, about digital permanence, about how her past actions created a shadow she might never escape. She researched reputation rehabilitation, but concluded that some damage was irreversible. The maturity in her writing contrasted sharply with the immature cruelty of her cataloged messages. Winter formal approached. Ella no mencionó ni una palabra. I found her that night reorganizing the garage while her former friends posted photos from the dance. She'd created a workout space, channeling her energy into physical activity. The punching bag she'd asked for became her new outlet. I discovered she'd been tutoring struggling students in the library, not for credit or recognition, but because she had nowhere else to go during free periods. The librarian told me Ella was patient and kind with students who struggled with reading. The same girl who once mocked a classmate's stutter now helped others find their voice. Her grandmother visited for Thanksgiving. She immediately noticed the change in Ella, commenting on how quiet she'd become. At dinner, Ella served others first, cleared plates without being asked, then excused herself to write that day's essay. My mother pulled me aside, concerned about the dramatic transformation. I showed her some of Ella's writing. She cried. Black Friday came and went without Ella asking for anything. Previous years had seen elaborate wish lists and demands for the latest trends. This year, she spent the day volunteering at a food bank, something she'd arranged herself. She came home exhausted, but with the first genuine smile I'd seen in months. The school announced a winter talent show. In previous years, Ella and her friends would perform elaborate dance routines, using the platform to showcase their popularity. This year, she didn't even pick up a form. I found her that evening teaching herself sign language from YouTube videos, preparing to better communicate with a deaf student who'd recently enrolled. Her report card arrived showing straight A's. Teachers' comments praised her focus and dedication, but expressed concern about her social isolation. One wrote that Ella seemed to be punishing herself beyond what anyone else was doing to her. The observation hit close to home. I noticed Ella had started running early mornings before school. She'd leave while it was still dark, returning sweaty and centered. Running became her meditation, her way of preparing for another day of isolation. She mapped different routes to avoid passing the homes of former friends. One evening, she asked permission to repaint her room. The bright pink walls became a calm gray. She removed all mirrors except one small one for basic grooming. The room transformed from a shrine to vanity into a space for reflection and growth. I helped her paint, working in comfortable silence. Her essays began exploring the concept of redemption. She questioned whether people could truly change, whether actions could ever be fully atoned for. She interviewed me about my own experiences with bullying, taking notes as I shared stories I'd never told anyone. That night's essay was about intergenerational trauma and the cycle of hurt. The holiday season highlighted her isolation. Former friends posted photos from parties and gatherings. Ella spent those evenings crafting handmade gifts for family members, skills she taught herself from library books. The girl who once valued only designer brands now found joy in creating something with her own hands. She started a journal separate from her required essays. I didn't read it, respecting her privacy, but I noticed her writing in it during moments of particular difficulty. The journal became her confidant when human connection wasn't available. School resumed after winter break with new dynamics. Some of Ella's former friends had fallen out with each other, creating splinter groups. She watched these developments from the periphery, writing essays about how quickly alliances shifted when built on cruelty rather than genuine connection. A new student named Danielle joined Ella's grade. Unaware of the social dynamics, she initially tried to befriend my daughter. Danielle trying to befriend Ella without knowing the history. That's a fascinating social experiment happening right in front of us. Makes me wonder if Ella sees this as a chance for something real, or if she's too deep in her self-imposed exile to even recognize the opportunity sitting right there. I watched Ella gently discourage the connection, protecting the new girl from social contamination. That night's essay explored the ethics of self-imposed isolation to protect others. Ella's locker partner requested a change, leaving her with a locker in the most isolated corner of the school. She accepted it without complaint, using the long walks between classes as thinking time. Teachers noticed she was always the first to arrive and last to leave, maximizing her time away from social spaces. Valentine's Day proved particularly cruel. Someone left a fake Valentine in her locker with a message mocking her isolation. Ella photographed it and used it as inspiration for an essay about how holidays weaponize social connection. She spent that evening making Valentines for elderly residents at a local nursing home. The school counselor called me again. They'd noticed Ella helping a student having a panic attack, calmly guiding them through breathing exercises. When asked how she knew what to do, Ella had simply said she'd researched anxiety management techniques. The counselor suggested Ella might benefit from peer support training. I encouraged her to apply. She didn't get accepted. The program required peer recommendations, and Ella couldn't find anyone willing to vouch for her. She took the rejection quietly, channeling her disappointment into an essay about institutional barriers to redemption. The maturity of her analysis belied her young age. Spring arrived with new challenges. Group projects for final grades meant forced interaction with classmates who'd rather fail than work with her. I watched Ella complete entire projects alone, never complaining when others took credit for her work. Teachers noticed but felt powerless to intervene in the social dynamics. Her running distances increased. What started as short morning jogs became long runs that pushed her physical limits. She mapped routes through neighborhoods where she wouldn't encounter anyone from school. Running became her way of literally moving through the pain. I found her one night researching homeschooling programs again. Not asking, just researching. The browser history showed hours of exploring online education options. When I asked about it, she closed the laptop and said she was just curious. That night's essay was about the difference between running away and strategic retreat. Prom season began its buildup. The elaborate proposals and dress shopping that dominated social media felt like salt in Ella's wounds. She spent those weeks volunteering at the animal shelter, finding comfort in creatures who didn't judge her past. The shelter director called to praise her dedication and gentle handling of traumatized animals. A former friend's mother confronted me at the grocery store. She accused me of being too harsh, said the punishment had gone too far. I asked if she'd spoken up when her daughter participated in pushing Jamie to attempt sewer slide. Her silence was answer enough. That evening, Ella's essay explored complicity and the convenience of late-arriving conscience. The school announced Jamie had won a prestigious award for an essay about resilience. The announcement included a brief mention of overcoming bullying. Ella heard the news during morning announcements and spent the rest of the day in visible distress. That night, she wrote her longest essay yet about the permanence of harm and the inadequacy of apology. Spring sports season saw Ella join the track team, not for social connection, but for the solitary nature of running. She trained alone, competed without teammates cheering, celebrated personal records in silence. The coach noted her dedication, but also her complete isolation from team dynamics. I discovered Ella had been leaving positive anonymous notes in random lockers, small encouragements and compliments, trying to add kindness to the world without seeking recognition. A janitor mentioned seeing her slip notes through vents early mornings. The girl who who once spread cruelty now scattered kindness like seeds. Her 18th birthday approached with no mention of parties or celebrations. Previous years had involved elaborate plans and extensive guest lists. This year, she asked only for a donation to the disability advocacy group Jamie had mentioned in her award speech. I made the donation in Ella's name and watched her cry over the receipt. Final exams brought new stress. Group study sessions happened without her. Review parties excluded her. She prepared alone, using the isolation as motivation to excel. Teachers offered extra help, recognizing her effort, if not addressing her social situation. She thanked them, but rarely accepted, not wanting to burden anyone. The last week of school arrived with traditional senior activities. Elia participated in none of them. Senior skip day found her at school, alone in empty classrooms. Senior prank day passed without her involvement. She watched from windows as her former friends celebrated milestones she'd never share. Graduation preparations began. Cap and gown fittings happened during lunch to avoid crowds. She decorated her cap with a simple message: growth. No glitter or elaborate designs like her peers. The minimalism reflected her transformed priorities. I found her looking at colleges far from home, not prestigious schools she once dreamed of, but small programs where she could start fresh. Her essays had shifted to exploring the possibility of reinvention, of whether geographic distance could provide the clean slate time couldn't. The final week brought unexpected cruelty. Someone spray-painted "bully" on our driveway. Ella cleaned it herself before school, leaving earlier than usual to ensure I wouldn't see. But I watched from the window as she scrubbed concrete in the dawn light, accepting this too as consequence. Her final essay before graduation was a letter to her future self. She wrote about the person she hoped to become, the amends she hoped to make, the life she wanted to build on the ruins of who she'd been. She acknowledged she might never escape her past, but committed to ensuring her future looked nothing like it. Graduation day arrived with complicated emotions. Ella sat alone in the sea of caps and gowns, her former friends clustered together for photos. When her name was called, the auditorium fell silent. No cheers or applause beyond my own. She walked across the stage with dignity, accepting her diploma from a principal who'd once called her a monster. After the ceremony, families gathered for celebrations. Ella stood apart, diploma in hand, watching others embrace and laugh. Jamie rolled past with her family, crown of flowers in her hair, surrounded by love and support. The contrast was stark and deserved. Elia didn't approach or try to make contact. She simply watched Jamie receive the celebration she deserved. We drove home in silence. Ella held her diploma, but didn't look at it. The weight of the moment, the finality of her high school experience, settled between us. She'd survived, but at a cost that would follow her for years. The girl who'd entered high school as a social queen left as a pariah. That evening, she wrote one final essay without prompting. Not for Wi-Fi access, but for herself. She wrote about accountability, about living with consequences, about the hope that someday she might do enough good to balance the scales. She wrote about Jamie's strength and her own weakness. She wrote about the justice in her suffering and the injustice of Jamie's. As I read her words, I realized the transformation was complete, but the journey far from over. Elia understood now what cruelty cost, but understanding and healing were different things. She'd learned empathy through isolation, compassion through consequence. The question remained whether she could build a life worthy of the lessons learned through such devastating education. The summer stretched ahead with uncertainty. College applications waited. New beginnings beckoned. But first, Ella had to figure out who she was beyond the bully she'd been and the pariah she'd become. The internet restrictions had ended, but the real work of redemption had just begun. The summer days blurred together in a haze of college applications and quiet dinners. Ella spent most mornings at the public library, using their computers since she'd developed an aversion to excessive screen time at home. I'd find her application drafts on the kitchen counter, each one wrestling with how to explain her transformation without making excuses for her past. One afternoon, I discovered her volunteering at a local community center's summer program for kids with disabilities. She hadn't told me about it. The program coordinator mentioned Ella had shown up asking if they needed help. No court-ordered service hours, no college resume padding, just a girl trying to understand through action rather than theory. I watched from my car as she helped a young boy navigate his walker through an obstacle course. The patience in her movements, the way she celebrated his small victories without condescension, showed genuine growth. When the boy's mother arrived, I saw them exchange words. The woman's initial wariness melted into something like acceptance as Ella helped transfer her son into their van. College rejection letters started arriving in July. Schools that might have overlooked her grades couldn't ignore the disciplinary records. Each thin envelope landed with the weight of consequence. Ella would read them once, nod, then add them to a folder she labeled Earned Results. No tears, no anger, just acknowledgement. Her former friend Victoria posted photos from orientation at her dream school. Ella saw them while using my laptop for application work. Her fingers paused over the keyboard before she closed the browser and returned to her essay essay about why she wanted to study social work at the local community college. The community center asked Ella to help with their end-of-summer showcase. The community center trusting her with their showcase after everything. That's curious timing. Makes me wonder if they know her history, or if she's managed to keep it quiet there. She worked behind the scenes, adjusting microphones for kids using communication devices, ensuring wheelchair accessibility to the makeshift stage. During the show, I spotted Jamie in the audience with her family. The two girls' eyes met briefly. Jamie gave the slightest nod before turning back to watch the performance. Ella's hands trembled as she adjusted another microphone. August brought a letter from an unexpected source. The mother of the boy with the walker had written to the community college, describing Ella's volunteer work. Not a recommendation exactly, but an observation of growth. Ella read it standing in our kitchen, then carefully folded it into her application folder. I found her one evening researching apartment prices near the community college, modest places she could afford with part-time work. She'd calculated budgets in a notebook, factoring in rent, groceries, the bus pass she'd need since she'd never gotten her license. The girl who once demanded designer everything now planned a life of careful simplicity. Her acceptance letter to the community college arrived on a Thursday. No celebration, no social media announcement. She simply thanked me for not giving up on her and went to her room to plan her class schedule. I heard her on the phone with the financial aid office, navigating loans and work-study options with mature determination. The week before classes started, Ella encountered Victoria at the grocery store. I watched from the cereal aisle as her former best friend walked past without acknowledgement. Ella's hand tightened on her cart handle, but she continued shopping, selecting generic brands and checking prices. Victoria's designer purse swung as she grabbed items without looking at costs. Ella's first day of college approached with quiet preparation. She'd bought used textbooks online, organized a simple wardrobe of neutral clothes, packed a lunch to save money. The morning of, she left early to catch the bus, a backpack of secondhand supplies her only accessory. I started getting texts from her during breaks between classes, brief updates about finding the library, navigating financial aid paperwork, the reality of starting over where nobody knew her story yet. She understood her past would eventually surface, but for now, she had the gift of anonymity. September blurred into October. Elia developed a routine of classes, studying at the library and volunteer work. She'd made a few acquaintances but kept them at arm's length. I'd overhear her politely declining invitations to parties or study groups, protecting others from potential social contamination when her past inevitably emerged. The community center offered her a part-time paid position, minimum wage, but it covered her bus pass and some groceries. She accepted gratefully, adjusting her class schedule to accommodate afternoon shifts. Her supervisor mentioned Ella was especially good with kids who'd been bullied, though she never shared why she understood their pain so well. Halloween came and went without costume parties or social media posts. Ella worked a special event at the center, helping kids with mobility challenges navigate trick-or-treat activities. She came home exhausted, but with something like peace in her expression. I discovered she'd been attending free counseling sessions at the college. Not court-ordered, not required, just a girl trying to understand herself better. The counselor's office called once when she missed an appointment due to work. The receptionist mentioned Ella was one of their most committed clients. November brought an unexpected encounter. Jamie's mother appeared at the community center during Ella's shift. The woman watched Ella help a girl with cerebral palsy paint a turkey craft. When their eyes met, Ella froze, but Jamie's mother simply nodded and left a donation at the front desk. No words exchanged, but the gesture held weight. Ella's grades from her first semester arrived in December. Straight A's in her general education requirements. Her academic advisor noted her dedication, but also her isolation. Ella had participated in every class, but formed no study groups, made no friends. The advisor suggested joining clubs. Ella politely declined. Winter break meant more hours at the community center. The director trusted her with keys now, letting her open early for families who needed before work care. I'd drive past sometimes, seeing her car there at 6 a.m., setting up activities for kids who'd arrive soon. One morning, she encountered a new family touring the center. The parents mentioned their daughter had been severely bullied at school. I watched Ella's face change as she knelt to the girl's level, sharing resources about resilience without mentioning her own story. The family enrolled that day. Her second semester began with the same quiet determination. New classes, same isolation, continued volunteer work, but something had shifted. She walked with purpose now, not shame. The weight remained, but no longer crushed her. A professor assigned a project on restorative justice. Ella threw herself into research, interviewing experts, studying cases, writing with passion born from personal understanding. Her presentation made several classmates cry. The professor suggested submitting it to an undergraduate conference. Ella declined, not ready for that level of visibility. Spring arrived with its usual social media flood of spring break trips and parties. Elia worked extra shifts, saving money, planning for summer courses. Her former life felt like a different universe, one she could observe but never re-enter. The community center's annual fundraiser approached. They asked Ella to speak briefly about the program's impact. She declined repeatedly until the director mentioned it might help secure funding for equipment the kids needed. That night, she wrote and rewrote a 2-minute speech. The fundraiser arrived on on a warm April evening. Local families, small business owners, and community supporters filled the modest venue. Ella stood at the podium, hands steady despite her nerves. She spoke simply about the power of patience, the importance of seeing ability within disability, the way helping others had helped her understand herself. No mention of her past, just quiet advocacy for the program. In the audience, I spotted several familiar faces: a teacher from Ella's high school, the mother of a girl she'd once bullied, and in the back corner, Jamie with her family. Ella saw them too, but continued speaking, her voice growing stronger as she described the children who'd taught her about resilience. After her speech, people approached with donations and questions. Ella directed them to the director, slipping away to help clean up, but Jamie's mother intercepted her by the kitchen. They spoke briefly, Jamie's mother's hand touching Ella's arm before walking away. Ella stood frozen for a moment, then returned to stacking chairs. The semester ended with Ella signing up for summer courses and more work hours. Her path forward remained modest, focused on education and service rather than redemption or forgiveness. She understood some bridges stayed burned, some harm remained permanent. As I helped her pack for a slightly larger apartment closer to campus, we worked in comfortable silence. Her possessions fit in a few boxes, mostly textbooks and simple clothes. The essays she'd written during her punishment sat in a storage container, a record of transformation she neither hid from nor displayed. On moving day, she hugged me goodbye with strength that surprised us both. No tears or dramatic declarations, just a girl continuing the slow work of becoming someone better than who she'd been. The road ahead stretched long and uncertain, but she faced it with clear eyes and steady steps. I drove home alone, thinking about the journey from that first phone call about Jamie to this quiet new beginning. Justice had been served not through grand gestures or public redemption, but through daily choices to live with consequences and choose differently. Ella would never undo her past, but she was building a future defined by service rather than cruelty, isolation rather than false popularity, genuine work rather than empty apologies. The girl who'd once destroyed others for entertainment now spent her days helping children navigate challenges she'd once mocked. It wasn't enough, might never be enough, but it was a start. And sometimes that's all any of us can do. Start again, one small right choice at a time. Thanks for reading this story with me. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next one.